I still think of myself as the same 15-year-old guy that I was, but I'm not. And so when I talk about Stevie to some of the younger players, they kind of look at me like, you knew Stevie? What? And it's like when I was young and I met guys that knew Jimi Hendrix. You just wanted to squeeze them for information. So we talked earlier about me not wanting to like the new guy, but he came along and blew me away. And I went from not wanting to like him to wanting to be him, basically. So much so, this is funny, there was when his first album, Texas Flood, came out, they gave it a really shitty review in Guitar World magazine. So I wrote them a letter at the tender young age of 14. And the next issue of Guitar World came out, and I remember being over selling firewood for my dad over at the sawmill and reading the guitar magazine, and there was a headline in the letter section, "Don't Badmouth the Blues." 1983 issue of Guitar World, and they printed my letter, where I basically told the guy he was a
fantastic.
Yeah, I told the guy he was fucked in the head. I'm paraphrasing there. Years later, on one of the magazine's anniversaries, the guy admitted it was one of the biggest follies of his career was to suggest that Stevie Ray Vaughan's Texas Flood album was boring and not worth buying.
Was he the guy at Decca who turned down the Beatles?
He might as well have been. It was very similar. I mean, there you are. You're supposed to be the record review for Guitar Magazine, and you're going, Stevie Ray who? This guy sucks. But, I mean, you show at 14 years old, I actually had a letter published defending him. So I was dying to see him play again. And he did come to Vancouver one more time, but I was unable to go. This time he was opening for the Moody Blues, if you can believe that. Ugh. These bizarre bills. But anywho, he was just about to release Couldn't Stand the Weather, his second album, and I found out he's going to be playing at the Royal Theatre in Victoria. Well, you know I'm going. So it was a funny thing. I got my mom to drive me down, and I thought, well, I'm going to go to this Royal Theatre and see if maybe he's getting set up or doing sound check or something. So I walked up from the hotel, and I was like maybe a block away from the Royal Theatre, and there's a guy on a payphone. That's how old I am. But the guy on the payphone sees me, and I'm walking. I got my Stevie Ray Vaughan style hat. I got my shirt I got at the Moody Blues, or the Men at Work gig, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble, feeling good. And this guy just kind of covers up the payphone. He goes, "Hey," looks at me. I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Are you going to the show tonight?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Right on." Then he goes back to his phone call. I thought, well, that's kind of weird. And then I can see Stevie, the tour bus had just pulled up, and they're getting out of the bus and walking into the venue. But I'm on the other side of the street, and there's tons of traffic, and I almost killed myself trying to run across the street to meet him. But I got there too late. They closed the door. God damn it.
Didn't they know who you were?
Didn't they know who I think I am? So I went over there, and I was just hanging out, just listening, and I could hear them kind of playing a little bit. And then a guy comes out for a smoke. And it ends up he's the promoter. Now, this is the strangest thing. It was a young Mark Norman. He ended up working for Periscope Productions in Vancouver and then ended up being a big part of CPI Productions with Michael Cole and doing the Stones and everything. But this, I believe that this was his first independently promoted concert, Stevie Ray Vaughan at the Royal Theatre. In my scrapbook, I've got the original playbill. The tickets were ridiculous, like $8 or something, $12 maybe. Anyways, he came up for a smoke, and obviously I'm dressed like Stevie. "Oh, you're a big fan, huh?" I said, "Yeah, I am." And he goes, "Well, tell you what, maybe I can try to see if I can get an autograph for you." Okay. So he goes back in the venue, and he comes out about 10 minutes later, and he says, "Hey, Stevie's manager saw you, said he was on a payphone outside and saw you walking, so here's your autograph, but also here's a backstage pass. Why don't you come meet the boys?"
Wow.
Now, that wouldn't have happened in the days of cell phones. Luckily, this guy had to find a payphone, and I just happened to be walking by, so serendipity. So I go in, and Stevie's like, "Hey," like right away, shakes my hand. "How you doing?" "Good, great, man." Introduces me to the band. And he says to me, "You play guitar?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "Well, I need you to play some guitar for me because I want to go out in the venue and see what the sound's like." Oh. So he just puts that guitar, like the Stevie Ray Vaughan beat up old Stratocaster. Okay, put that on at 14 years old and looked at the band. I'm like, well, okay, shuffle in the key of E or whatever it was. And we just started playing. I started playing with the guys, and Stevie went out and just like, okay. And he's talking to the sound man and adjusting his sound. So that was kind of cool. And came up and goes, "Thanks, man." I go, "Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah." And then so, he did a song with the band, and then we went, The dressing rooms are downstairs at the Royal Theatre. So we went down there, and this is a really fortuitous thing is they actually had a photographer there. Because once again, this is 1984 or something, and you don't have the cell phones and that to take pictures. But I did get a couple photos that day, which is just fantastic. I mean, it's a nice memory to have, and normally you just wouldn't do it back then. Anyways, he was just super cool. He was talking to me like, what do you do and what's going on and blah, 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 blah. So I just had the time of my life. He let me sit with his guitar tech at the side of the stage during the whole concert, and it was fantastic. So that was kind of the first hang. So I remember getting back to the hotel room, and my mom had like taken my sisters somewhere, probably to Miniature World or wherever it was, and I was just on cloud nine. It was incredible.
I have a body part on display at Miniature World, by the way.
With the magnifying glass?
Man, Stevie Ray Vaughan asking wee little David Gogo to play guitar so he could check the sound must be the rough equivalent of a test pilot asking wee little Scott James to take a new Boeing 777 for a spin so that he can see how it looks from the ground.
Luckily, I was so young and stupid that I wasn't nervous. I just went, oh. And it was a big part of it was his attitude. He wasn't at all intimidating. He talked to me even as I was a 14-year-old kid. He was speaking to me as a peer. Oh, do you play guitar? Yeah. Hey, man, could you play my guitar so I could, see, I can hear it and I can know how it sounds out front for the audience, which is fantastic. But the next time I saw him was a little more self-conscious, I think, or a little more aware of the situation. I was woke.
No, not those days. How long did he last after that?
Well, I got to see him a lot after that. He came again to the Royal Theatre not that long later, like probably maybe a year later. And that's a whole mess. Should we really get into it?
Of course.
Okay. So by this time, I must have been 16 because I had my beautiful 64.5 Mustang convertible. Drove down on my own this time. And I'd recorded some kind of a silly little demo tape. For some reason, musicians do that, especially when they're younger. Like I'm gonna give him a tape of my stuff. Well, it's probably the last thing he wants to do is listen to some shitty blues guitar player. But anyways, I'd recorded that, and I think I actually brought a guitar with me. I don't know why I did that, but I brought it backstage, and he played it a bit. Went, oh, that's nice. So I actually have a guitar that Stevie played. But he was starting to give her pretty good then. He was starting to party pretty good, and I feel fine to talk about it because it's been well documented. So I'm a 16-year-old guy. Same thing. We hang out at the gig. Then he wants to go out and kind of, check out the nightlife a bit. So there was a fella that was hired just to drive him around for the evening. And because I was with these guys, we went to Harpo's nightclub, and I was just allowed in because I was with these guys that were older than me. There was an ID situation, even though I was underage. And there was some local band playing and kind of a cover band, but Stevie got up and played with them, and then we're all sitting at a table and having some drinks. I'm like, well, this is pretty cool. But then it's the first time I'd ever seen this. They had these little vials, and it looked like there was two parts of the vial. So there was cocaine on each side, and you'd open up one, and that was enough for one nostril, and then you open up the other one, was enough for the other nostril. So they were kind of pretending to drop something on the floor and pick it up and snorting this cocaine. And I'd never seen that. I was like, oh, okay. And having some drinks, and I was like, okay. But but he was cool. He was cool. So we ended up going back to his hotel. But this is what happened: was he was really starting to go for it, and something happened in the elevator, and he started coughing, and he seemed like he was choking. And the guy said he was with the guitar tech and some other like road manager or something. And they recognized what was going on. This obviously was not an uncommon thing. I don't know if he was having a seizure or what, but they immediately stopped the next floor, opened the elevator, told me, keep going. Because I knew where I was going. They gave me the key to Stevie's room or something. And they took him, and I remember as the elevator door closing, them getting him out to the stairwell and smacking him as hard as they could on the back to make him cough up whatever was happening. I don't know. So that was freaky. And so I'm just sitting in his room, and then finally they show up, and he kind of walks in, and he apologized. He said, "I'm sorry, man. Something weird happened there." And anyways, he goes, "So we should probably get some beers or something." So we get some beers, and as we're hanging out, I remember he went to get maybe pay for the beer or something. We got it delivered, and the phone rang. He goes, "Would you mind grabbing that?" And hello, And it's like, yeah, Stevie around? I go, sure. And Stevie goes, who is it? I go, may I ask who's calling? It's Jackson Brown. Right, it's Jackson Brown, Stevie. So like, it's just crazy. But we hung out, and he listened to this stupid tape I brought him, and kind of humored me with that. And then this is the ultimate peer pressure. He says to me, well, I think you saw this a little bit earlier, but this is kind of what I do. And he put some cocaine out on the desk there at the hotel. And he goes, I am not suggesting in any way that you do this, because it's not good. He says, but you're my guest, so if you want to, you can. And I said, no, that's cool. I mean, I just watched the guy just about die of a seizure. but he was calm at this point. He seemed very lucid. And we were just talking about music and talking about this, talking about that, and drinking some beers. Finally, everyone starts to get tired, and they're leaving. And Stevie kind of looks at me, and he goes, you're not going to leave, are you? And I said, no, because I'm this dumb kid. I mean, I don't want to leave. I want to hang out with the guy. And he goes, well, I got to go to bed soon. He goes, do you have a hotel room or anything? I go, no, I was just going to sleep in my car, He goes, well, fuck. Well, you don't have to do that. He goes, here's the deal. He says, there's only one bed in this room, and whoever I sleep with, I fuck. And I'm not going to fuck you.
Uh-oh.
He says, but I know, he goes, I get it. Like, I could just see, he almost was like kind of laughing, because he could understand that, this hero worship. He'd done it. He worshipped all these different blues guys, and he's like, this kid's not going to leave. So I remember saying, I can just sleep on the floor. And so I'm laying down, and after about 10 minutes, he threw a pillow at me. And he was just laughing.
Now, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Was he not married at that time? Or had a girlfriend?
Yeah.
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 One or the other.
Yeah. Kind of little both, I think.
Yeah, okay.
But it was hilarious. I mean, and I think about it now, and I go, what the fuck was I thinking? I just wouldn't leave the guy's room. I mean, I try to be nice, because I've been, in my career, I've been so fortunate, especially when I was younger. A lot of the great blues men were very nice to me. They'd let me sit in with them. They'd hang out with me. But I wouldn't let some kid sleep on my hotel room floor. It was just, it's so ridiculous now. But he got it. And there's been a couple of books written about Stevie where they mention kind of this situation. They don't mention me by name, but they mention that he recognized that it was this young guy dressed as him. And that's when he realized he was on the other side of the hero worship thing, where he used to dress like Hendrix or dress like whoever that he was trying to emulate, and now he was on the other side of it. So that was something he tried to get across to me was, hey, you got to get your own thing. Like, it's cool to learn from other people, but you got to get your own thing. So that was an important message for him to send to me, like, you find your own thing. So we actually... I remember one time in the tour bus, he was playing me some really cool Howlin' Wolf and different players, and just showing me what these guys had. And it wasn't long afterwards that Albert Collins, the great Texas blues guitar player, said the same thing to me. And he said, you got to get your own ID. That's what he called it. You got to get your own ID. And then I realized, okay, yeah, because I remember, I was playing in bars and Nanaimo back then, and if I was walking up Commercial Street and I'd think to myself, I wonder who's playing at the Queen's Hotel tonight, and I could hear the guitar player, and I could usually, if it was my friend Michael, I went, Michael's playing. So he had an ID, he had this personality in his playing. So that's when I started working on it. I went, okay, well, instead of dressing like Stevie and trying to be like Stevie and playing all the Stevie songs, you got to find your own thing.